Hello, welcome to the second session of day 2. Today we're going to be talking about taking the practice off the cushion in a little bit more detail. The first thing we're going to discuss is standing like a wooden post. This is an exercise from the Chinese internal martial arts. Highly beneficial, extremely beneficial for seated practice, and a very helpful technique for taking some of what you've accomplished on the cushion and applying those skills in an everyday setting. As we discussed, if you want to start taking your training off the cushion, then finding types of activities that blend into your everyday routine, a highly beneficial bridge between the cushion and real life. One of the things that you're going to be doing for sure during the day is standing still at some point. You're going to be standing still to get in your car. You're going to be standing still to get on a train. You're going to be standing still to get on a bus. You're going to be standing still waiting in a line at the grocery store. And under these conditions, you can do a practice like this one with perhaps some modifications, right? In any case, you can start to bring full awareness into the body as to what you're doing right at that moment, and you have something for the mind to grab onto as an object of focus while you're not doing something else. So this is called Wújí. I don't know the diacritics, so I apologize if I pronounced that horribly and it actually means something else in Chinese. In any case, it can be translated ultimate posture. And this is generally the first standing posture that's taught in Chinese martial arts that use standing postures. In particular, Chinese internal martial arts is very commonly taught as the first posture. Just how to stand more or less without doing anything. Okay, so let's start from the ground up and talk about how to do standing training of this kind. Starting from the ground, your feet are going to face the front. So you can see in the image there, the feet face the front. And you want them between shoulder distance and hip distance. As you can see in the photo there, his feet are shoulder distance rather than hip distance. Either one of those is fine, but somewhere in between those two. So in between where the ball of the big bone in your thigh hits the hip and the ball of your shoulder joint hits your shoulder. Facing front, in terms of your feet, means that if you were to get rid of the pinky, right, the main body of the foot would look like this. And you want to create a parallel line as though you had no pinky toe between the heel and the toe on both sides. So the outer line of the foot is what you're going to be using as the sort of dividing line to create the railroad track that you're standing on. Relatively speaking, your feet should be flat on the ground, so you're not creating a big arch with the foot. You're not doing this thing that you sometimes do in martial arts where you rotate that hip joint outward and the foot sort of clenches up. In Western anatomy, they have a way of talking about this. There's a locked position of the bones in the foot, basically where they all sort of crunch up like this, and the foot becomes very hard, and there's an open position of those bones or an unlocked position of those bones. And when you relax the foot down onto the ground like this, the bones spread out just like the bones in my hand here. And when you twist the hip, then those bones clench up like this. And so both of those are natural positions for the bones of the foot. However, in this position, you are tending more towards the open bone position. You don't want to have the weight on the toe, right? On the toe pad only, like you do in some sort of boxing styles and such. You're not, or tennis. You're not being completely toe weighted. Also, you're not standing on the heel as they do in some other martial arts setting. If you're on the heel, then the force transfers only through the bones. If you look at a lot of older people, they tend to walk on their heels because their muscles aren't as strong anymore. So very, very old people tend to have heel weightedness. Younger people who are very strong tend to walk a bit more on their toes. In either case, the ideal position is to use the strength of both the muscles and the bones, or in this case, really the tendons and the bones. We're trying to get the body to release in such a way, we'll talk about this later, but release in such a way that you end up just sort of, the bones end up just hanging on the relaxed tendons, which sounds a little wacko at this point, but that's okay. Stay with me. So you're in this mostly flat position, but you're also not resting on the arch. You don't want to be putting your weight right here on the arch. You'll hurt your foot in the long run. The weight is going, equivalent would be here, not here on the arch, right? You're putting it about here, right? Just before the pad sort of opens up. So you can see here on the diagram, this is more or less where it is. So on the pad of your foot, right sort of between the two big toes, there's an area just before that, and you want it there. Not all the way here on the toes, but about there. That's the bulk of your weight, should be there. And then you bend the knees, and you bend the knees so that when you look down, you can only see the big toe, right? So when you're looking down, the knee is in the way, and the only thing that's sticking out basically is the end of your big toe. You just see that over there behind your knee. Now the hips, the waist, and the spine. So here, all the muscles around the sexual organs and so forth are relaxed. However, you have two sphincters, and the voluntary anal sphincter, the one that's on the outside, you lightly contract. And biologically, usually for most people, the sexual organ muscles and the voluntary sphincter are linked up biologically. So if you contract one, you end up contracting both at the same time. So this will take some work, but you have to slowly work on disconnecting this so you can close the anal sphincter without tensing all the sexual muscles. This takes some time, but that's okay. You have time. So you're closing the sphincter muscle with the gentleness, it's said in some places, of blinking your eye. So it's very, very lightly. You're not like clenching your butthole. Okay. Hip muscles. So all the muscles around the hips are relaxed. You can think about it like this. This is a sort of helpful exercise. There are muscles in your hips that pull like this, right? So then the leg ends up going like this. And there are muscles that pull like this, so the leg ends up going like this, right? So the muscles on the outside of the hips can pull the leg and make it turn in either direction. So mentally, if you just sort of check those by pulling in one way and relaxing, pulling the other way and relaxing, you can sort of see where you are in terms of relaxation on those. And then there are muscles which pull the hips up this way and muscles which will pull it down this way. The muscles that'll pull it this way are on your back, and these are on your front, right? You contract this muscle on the front and it pulls up. You contract this muscle on the back, it pulls down. So if you just sort of rock the hips, not like this, front and back, but if you rock them like this, and then release, then you can achieve some level, some introductory level of sort of releasing those muscles around the hips. Importantly, in the area between the sort of tailbone and the coccyx area just above, not the coccyx area, the coccyx is the tailbone, and the sacral area rather, there's sort of a big bow of muscles that are your buttock muscles, and there's a whole bunch of little muscles there. So if you'll probably notice that one side wants to kind of stay closed and tensed. So again, you can sort of tense each side, whatever you need to do, and then try to release. The key is to, again, try to release all the muscles in the hip area so that you end up almost hanging from this point here all the way down to the hips. From the Marshall crown to the area just between the sphincter and the sexual muscles, as though there's a weight connected there between the anus and sexual muscles. Boom, pulling down. So there's a string pulling all the way through. Chest, shoulders, arms, hands. So the chest muscles, if you tense them, they raise up slightly. So you're going to release the chest muscles, which will also have the effect of probably relaxing the shoulders backwards a little bit. Also, sometimes people have tension here. When you tense this, see there are muscles here that pull the arm in this way. So when you relax that, the arm drifts downwards. And if I tense the chest, see how the arm comes over this way? So if I relax the chest, the arm goes back and down, right? So you want to relax here and the front of the shoulder nest here, right? So that you're not holding the arms up, the front of the shoulder nest here. These muscles are also relaxed. So watch, when I tense those, the arm comes up, right? So those muscles are bringing the arm up. So if I relax them, the arm goes down. So one more time, if we relax the stuff that's in here, the arm goes this way. If we relax the stuff that's in here, the arm goes this way. And if we relax the stuff that's right here in the front, the arm goes down. So as you release all those muscles, the shoulders should go down and slightly back and away from the head, right? They should widen out. You'll get wider by doing this, but you'll look very relaxed. My shoulders are all messed up. You may have noticed from the videos, one shoulder is higher than the other one quite often, because I have a lot of old injuries. However, doing this, my shoulders and a couple other things related to this, my shoulders have gotten better than they've been maybe since I was 17. It's pretty great. So the scapula on the back are also relaxed. If you look at the shoulder, there are muscles in the shoulder which rotate it this way and rotate it that way, right? So if you're trying to release those muscles, there's a muscle tip right here that goes through all the tissue and behind the scapula. So if you're having pain here, it's probably the rotator cuff. It's probably the muscles that are rotating the arm like this, which are attached to the scapula, in my understanding. And so when you relax those, again, if I have this one tense, right, and I relax it, the arm drifts to the right. So that's the muscle behind the scapula. If you can get your mind in there, you can relax that, and again, the arm sort of swings this way, right? So that's the effect you want to get in releasing the scapula. You don't want to get the effect of pulling the arm back using the muscles on the back. Very different. Obviously, you want to relax all these muscles in here. You want to relax the elbow joint. You want to relax all the muscles in the forearm. Relax the muscles in the wrist. And then the hand has a slight bit of tension, but it's more so just to open the palm and to stretch outwards from the fingers, right? So you can think about it almost like the hand is on a basketball, kind of, and it's sort of stretching out over that basketball. Although the flatter you can get the inside of the palm, I don't know if you can see this, but you can see how the palm is kind of rounded, and the flatter you can get the palm without pulling the fingers backwards like this, the better. And so then the hand ends up in about this position, right? And that little bit of openness in the palm creates a host of stretches that go all the way up the body, down the back, and into the feet when you do it properly, because of all these tendon connections. This is kind of interesting, but when they're dissecting a cadaver and they get to a muscle tip of some of the major muscles in the body, they can either cut like this, and then they have the muscle and they can pull it out, or there's actually a piece of white tissue that goes over and connects to the next muscle group. A lot of times they just cut through that like this, and then you just end up with the muscle. But if you cut underneath that, there are actually sheets of connective tissue that connect these big lines of muscle and white tissue, connective tissue, through the entire body. So when we're releasing everything in this standing posture, we end up in a position where the body is being held up by the released and relaxed white tissue that has become slightly stretched. And so it'll feel almost like your whole body is like a bag filled with rubber bands that are just slightly stretched and relaxed, and it feels very, very nice. Also, in terms of the scapula, which is this big bone back here on the back of the arm, right? To get the feeling of that being open without rounding the back over like this, because a lot of people do that. They try to open that by basically doing a sit-up while standing, and that's not correct. The best way I've found to explain this is if you give yourself a hug, and not a high hug, but almost like you're trying to hug your solar plexus, you'll feel the back kind of opens. In particular, if you really reach your hands and you try to reach around this way, you'll feel the back kind of opens, but without rolling over like this. The back opens while staying upright. It opens by opening the tissue on the back like this. And that's actually the sort of what we would call in Tai Chi, the open position of that tissue. So you can either relax the scapula down this way, and that tissue closes this way, or you can relax the tissue out this way, and it opens this way, but it's also relaxed. So there are two positions. One is we would call closed, the other we would call open, at least in terms of the physical body. Okay, very important. Now the neck, head, and face. Let's start with the easy stuff. Just relax the muscles on your face. The jaw will be, basically if you look here, see how my teeth are slightly open. I'm not holding it open. If you just relax these muscles here, you'll find that the teeth are apart. Unless you have a lot of tension in the jaw or an injury, the teeth naturally sit apart. So the lips will be together, the teeth will be apart, and you take the tongue and you put it on the roof of the mouth, just here. There's a little bump. One of my teachers says when you put your tongue there, it almost tastes like or feels like you've put your tongue on the end of a battery. A slightly metallic, sort of electric sensation. That's where you want to put your tongue, just behind the upper teeth on the hard palate there. The rest of the tongue you relax, just the tip you curl up, like so, right? Okay. So that's the easy stuff. Face relaxes, tongue is placed there. Don't make faces. This posture is really going to hurt after about 3 minutes. There's a gentleman in our class who's in his early 70s, and he's seeing a fitness instructor because he's recovering from cancer. And the fitness instructor asked, well, what are you doing at home? And he said, well, I'm doing standing training. And the guy was like, standing training? You mean you're just standing there? And he was like, no, let me show you. And he put him in this position that we're describing. And this guy who does fitness for a living lasted about 3 minutes. So this will not be easy. This is not an easy thing to do. Next, this is very, very important. I'll turn sideways. The martial crown is as indicated there, right? It's not the spiritual crown, which is more towards the front, where the bones meet. So the spiritual crown is here, right? Where the bones meet on the front of the skull. The martial crown is as indicated on the diagram there. It's about here. You can draw a straight line from there to the place that's between the anus and the sexual organs, right? Right there. And you want to pull the head up from that point. Another way to think about this is there are, I believe they're called occipital, what are they called? Oh, mastoid processes, right? There are two large bones on the skull, you can see in the notes there. And if you push up from there, you end up in about the correct position, except you'll tend to go like this when you push up. And if you lower the chin from that position, then you can raise the head and lower the chin without compressing the back of the spine. A lot of people do this, and they pull the head back to try to straighten the back of the spine. Don't do that. You compress all the vertebra and you'll cause damage over time. Your neck will degenerate over time. Instead, you want to lift from here and then bring the head down as though you're rotating it from right there. Boom. That decompresses the neck. And then for quite a while, you'll feel some tension here in these two little muscles in the front. And the rest of the neck, when you get this position correct, will just feel completely relaxed. And you'll feel almost like two rubber bands or elastic bands. You'll feel these two muscles and their connective tissues stretch, which is normal. And there's a little video here if you'd like to check it out at your leisure. Now, when you get to the point where you want to start using this postural training to extend your meditation training, just chat with me, you know. A very easy thing to do would be to do this standing posture, for example, and then to do your seated session, and then to do, as we discussed before, maybe your rumination, and then to do a bit of study, or to combine your rumination and your study for 5 minutes, right? And then you have 15 minutes where you're preparing some technique to be able to take your training off the cushion and getting the body in a better position to do the seated training. Then you do the seated training, and then you do your rumination, working on your primary issue, and so forth. So in 15 minutes, you have some tools to use to start bringing the training into real life. One is you're cultivating the antidotes to some specific issue you really have in real life, like anger, or being way too lusty, or whatever. And then on the other, you're doing this standing practice, which is improving dramatically your ability to sit, but also is something that very directly can be taken into real life anytime you happen to be standing, or sitting for that matter. Now, in 90 seconds or less, to then really turn up the volume on this exercise, you can either go from top to bottom or bottom to top. But you start with your toes, then the foot, and then the wrist, and then, then the ankle, then the knee, blah, blah, blah. And you move up. You can move up by about a foot or a few inches, or however much you can handle. You spend about the same amount of time on each section of the body, each chunk of the body, and you move up and try to release that area even more. Move up, release that, move up, release that. Then you get to the head, then you start from here. Release this, release this, release this, release, release, release. Going down, boom, 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 boom. And when you get to the bottom, then you come back up. So you can do that for 5 minutes, where you're going up and down this way. If you do this properly, you will experience some of the most intense pain you've ever felt in your life. In your legs, in your knees, in your ankles, in your feet. And that's normal. But do pay attention. There's a difference between the type of pain that comes from an injury that's occurring and a type of pain that comes because everything is opening when it's been closed for a long time and you're just pulling it open to where it should be. Very painful. So there are hundreds of postures that are very, very beneficial. Hundreds. So when you get to the place where you want to start doing this, if you want to start doing it with me, we can have a chat. Okay? Also, this exercise starts to build up can help to start building up, I should say, the winds in the body, the chi in the body, changing the flow of how the winds move in the body. And so this has a very beneficial effect on your psychology overall, as well as your ability to do concentration meditation in general. So I highly recommend this kind of training. Okay, let's do our 5 minutes. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow, may that arisen not decline but increase forevermore. May the precious supreme view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. See you tomorrow morning.